Chapter 3, Section 3, Least Square Regression Line.
What is least square regression line?
It's a method for finding a line that summarizes the relationship between two variables, but only in a specific setting.
Definition of a regression line.
A regression line is a straight line that describes how a response variable, y, changes as an explanatory variable, x, changes.
As you can see, y is the response variable and x is the explanatory variable. We often use a regression line to predict the value of y for a given value of x.
LSRL is a mathematical model for the data.
Error equals observed minus predicted.
The LSRL of y on x is the line that is made of the sum of the squares of the vertical distances of the data points from the line as small as possible.
The slope of the regression line is usually important for the interpretation of the data.
And the intercept of the regression line is the value of y hat when x equals 0.
Plot the line on the scatter plot by hand. There's two steps. Step 1. Use the equation to find y hat for two values of x, one near each end of the range of x in the data. And step 2 is you plot each y hat above its x and draw a line through the 2 points.
Coefficient of determination, r squared. It is the fraction of the variation in the values of y that is explained by the least square regression of y on x.
Facts about least square regression line. Number 1. The distinction between explanatory and response variables is essential in regression. Number 2.
Change in one standard deviation in x corresponds to a change of r standard deviations in y.
Number 3. The least square regression line always passes through the point x bar and y bar.
Residual. A residual is the difference between an observed value of the response variable and the value predicted by the regression line. Residual equals observed y minus the predicted y, which is a y hat.
The mean of the least square residuals is always 0. The sum of the least square residuals is not exactly 0, but the calculator rounds the residuals to 4 decimal places. This is called the round-off error.
Residual plot. It is a scatter plot of the regression residuals against the explanatory variable. Residual plots help us assess the fit of a regression line.
Things to look for in a residual plot. First, a curved pattern. A curved pattern means the relationship is not linear. Increasing or decreasing spread about the line as x increases means the prediction of y will be less accurate for a larger x. And the last two things to look for. Individual points with larger residuals are outliers in a y direction because they lie far from the line that describes the overall pattern. And the last thing to look for are individual points that are extreme in the x direction.
An outlier is an observation that lies outside the overall pattern of the other observations. Influential point. An observation is influential for statistical calculation if removing it would markedly change the result. Here's an example where age is an explanatory variable and adaptive scores are the response variables. That is the influential point. That's the outlier. The dotted line is a line without the influential point, whereas the solid line is with the influential point.